Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Art of Creation Homestead. My name is Jason. We're out here on this cold, but warming up a little bit, snow-covered ground here in Southwest Ohio. We're going to talk about Jesus today. That's what we do here on Sundays, if you're not aware. And I'm going to try and make it quick today because, first of all, I don't want to waste your time. Second of all, it's really bright out here. It's going to give me a migraine. So I'm going to try and get this going. It's a bright sun on white snow. Really tough. Oh, so let's get with it, shall we? In James chapter 1. James chapter 1, we're going to start in verse 2. He says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers, when you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith develops perseverance. Perseverance must finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. If any of you lacks wisdom, he should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to him. But when he asks, he must believe and not doubt, because he who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. That man should not think he will receive anything from the Lord. He is a double-minded man, unstable in all he does." Mentally unstable, or faithfully unstable. Not mentally unstable like you're nuts and you need to be in a psych ward or something, but like your mind can't stick on what it needs to stick on. Your mind can't just believe one thing to believe another, right? That's what he's saying here. And we get that way so often because we're in the world. I mean, I've done this before, you've done this before, we've all done this before. Paint yourself, you got flesh and bone, you're a human. So you're not always going to think the way God wants you to think. Your mental perspective and focus is always going to be exactly what he wants you to have. We're going to mess up, but we can limit those times we mess up, right? We can try not to mess up, and we can limit the amount of times we do so. If we trust God a little bit more. If we're not a double-minded individual. But it's really difficult to get there, and it's hard. It's just hard and for us to wrap our minds around that, because we want to believe and have a mental perspective that God wants us to have. But there's a whole lot of this world around us that's affecting us and influencing us on a daily basis, and that seeps in sometimes, don't it? And all of a sudden we start to believe and think like they do, and see things as they do, and think, I gotta do something about this because God's not really gonna come through for me, because maybe I'm not worth it, maybe I've done too much, maybe I'm just insignificant, or maybe he just doesn't care. These are all real things that we think about sometimes, and they're all false. They're all false, but these are the kinds of things that will go through our minds, and it's all because of the world's influence on us, and we allow that stuff to creep in because we just aren't as faithful to God as maybe we should be. And this is what kind of James is talking about here, because he says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers, you face trials of many kinds." Okay, so you're going to go through some stuff, right? You know that when you go through these things, essentially, I'm going to summarize now, because when you go through these things, it's going to test your faith and develop perseverance. And perseverance is necessary, right? Because it makes you mature and complete. So it completes you as an individual, as a Christian, as a follower of Christ, as a husband, wife, son, daughter, whatever. It completes you. Perseverance completes you. Makes you grow up. And you won't be lacking anything then once you're completed and whole, right? So hey, if you lack wisdom, so if you don't understand what's going on, ask God. He's going to help you figure it out. He's going to give it to you without finding fault. That's the key word. He's going to come through with you without finding fault. You're finding fault in yourself. God's going to give it to you without finding fault. If, when you ask, you believe. And if you don't doubt. And if you're not blown and tossed about like a wave of the sea, right? Don't be unstable. Don't allow these things to affect you so much. Obviously, we like everything we want. We want it all to come easy. And that's part of our problem, is that we want everything we want. We want it so easily. And a lot of times we're not willing to put in the persevering work. I'm there. I've been there. We've all been there, and it's okay. But we got to understand that God's timing is not our timing, and our timing is not His timing. You know, that He He's going to come through for you. He's going to help you understand things. He's going to put you in the right spot. He's going to do all these things if we believe and don't doubt. But like, see, we doubt so often. We worry and we doubt. And worry and doubt has no place with faith. They can't coexist. Because if you worry and doubt, you're not really having faith. You might have a little fear of what's going to happen, but some parts of fear is normal, and it's not going to do that. But like, you don't even want to be scared, but sometimes it's a scary thing. But worry and doubt really can't exist with faith. The faith can't exist there. They're two opposite ends of the spectrum. And so often we worry and doubt because we don't really think it's good. We're not worth it. Like I said, we're not. We think these things, and when we think these things, we become double-minded. I ask God for this. I can't ask God without believing He can do something about it. One way, right? But on the other hand, I don't really think so. Oh, double-minded, going back and forth, right? Double-minded person. How do we get out of that being double-minded? You know, that's a heck of a thing. How do we not be double-minded? How do we stop allowing that doubt and worry to creep in these situations? And so often we're not willing to put in the faith work, right? We don't understand why it's got to be so difficult. Isn't God the giver of all things that are good? Okay, why is it got to be so difficult? Why is it got to take so long? God, can't you just snap your fingers and it's being done? God, I asked you last week, what the heck's going on? God, I've been waiting for years. What's going on? Well, you're not growing up either. You haven't been made more mature. You haven't been willing to grow. Wow. That can be a little hard, and that can be a little hard on this guy as well. Sometimes you haven't been willing to grow. You've put your feet right here in the concrete and not willing to make any better steps towards being a better Christian. You planted your feet down and you're staying right where you're at. And you're not willing to move forward, you're not willing to grow. Therefore, things take longer. Plain and simple. Right? I'm not willing to grow. I want to be who I want to be, and I want God to do what I want Him to do. And I'm going to think the way I think about it. And if He doesn't come to my expectations, He didn't really care to start with. Man, that's tough. Gosh, that's tough. If He ain't doing things the way I want them done. God. So there's a double-minded. And we don't realize we're doing it sometimes. What if we were willing to change and meet the standard that God set? Because Jesus is the standard, or am I correct in that? Jesus is the standard we should live up to. He lived a perfect life. He did things right. He cared about people He didn't have to care about. He trusted God when things weren't easy. He was in the desert, in the wilderness for 40 days. Being tempted by Satan in every way, and didn't fall into that. He did not fall. He set the standard for us to live by, and yet we want to make the standard our standard, not God's standard. And look around, we see it in the world today. Everybody's trying to set their own standard instead of trying to change what might actually be better for them. So it's just the way we are as humans, and it's what we're being fed through every source that's out there. Okay? It's part of why I'm doing this like this, because I would rather be a positive source. I'd rather let God have a voice inside of these social media sources. Not Jason, want God. Okay? Because I'm preaching to myself today too, by the way. I'm preaching big time to myself today. We got to meet God's standard. And when we strive and work hard to meet God's standard, we might find that all of a sudden I'm taking steps towards God, and He's going to take some steps towards me, and things might just work out the way that's best for you. Maybe not the way you thought it was going to work out, but the way it's been best for you. Because if you thought it's going to be a certain way, it's probably not going to be there, because you got a human mind And God's got a God mind, and God's mind are probably better, and his ways probably better. So I would rather just meet God's standard and let him do what he wants to do. That's very simple. And then you're going to be more mentally and faithfully stable, and your perspective will be God's perspective and not man's double-minded perspective. So let's try that. Let's meet God's standard and not be double-minded, but trust even when it's hard, because he's trying to help you grow up and be a mature person. There's a whole lot of lack of maturity, even amongst those people who think they're mature. There's a whole lot of immaturity in our society, but God, because we're not doing things God's way, he wants you to be mature and complete. Doesn't mean things are going to come easy. Wish they would, but they're not going to. Okay? So let's do that. Let's grow up, be mature, trust God, meet his standard, okay? So thank you guys so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Comments or prayer requests or praise reports, leave them below. We'd love to hear from you. Pray for you. My name is Jason. This is Art of Creation Homestead. We love y'all. God bless you. Goodbye.